Well, friends, if you ever wondered about the power of the podcast, we finally have an answer to that question. Zach and I wondered if we would be somewhere where you wouldn't be able to find us, in a broom closet somewhere, janitor's closet, maybe next to the restroom. Nope.
In the restroom.
In the restroom. What's etiquette? You're not supposed to talk to anybody. What happens when you're recording a show in there? Nope. They stuck your old pals, Zach and TJ, right next to the Field of Dreams, where you can see us at GuardsFest. How shocked are you? Not about just us being here, which is cool enough. We've been talking about this for the last several years. When this comes back, let's do a live show there. Well, this isn't live. We're recording this, but we're here, but we're also right in the middle of everything. This is fantastic.
This is my field of dreams.
I mean, just how cool is this? We can look around and you can hear it in the background, and yeah, there's going to be crowd and there's going to be speakers, and that's part of the atmosphere. If you couldn't be here at GuardsFest, we will be we can't be your eyes, but we can definitely be your ears.
Yeah, it's been great interacting with some of our listeners who have popped over to say hello. And we're not too far from the racks of random jerseys.
Oh, yes.
We're not too far from the APL, which I assume has some puppies that you can take home.
Oh.
I mean, this is, where else would you want to be?
In fact, one of our listeners, apparently, they just adopted a puppy.
Ah.
Yeah, that happened while we were getting ready to record.
How about that?
So that's what could anything could happen. We make that joke all the time. Anything can happen on this show. Sam Henches could walk right by us and not care, not put on a headset or anything, but anything could happen. That's the definition of today.
Well, we know that 2 of 3 players who were just playing with some kids in the Field of Dreams like hot dogs. So my goal, the mission for this podcast needs to be to find the Cleveland Guardian who does not like hot dogs.
How does that work?
Was it Sam Henches? Was it Ahmed Rosario?
It might be. He just ducked down. He doesn't want people to know. Well, this is all about the connecting with fans. Certainly for the team, for us, I feel like it's an ability to connect with everybody. It's so cool to put names and faces and voices together. We're so happy that we've already been able to meet a few. Hopefully a few people just stop by and join the show. I'm all for that. But this is also a time to think about the year ahead. And you have posted for several weeks, maybe in response to MLB.com recently putting out an article about teams in the future when they will win the World Series, predicting the next 10. Is that right?
Yeah. Or through the rest of the decade?
Is it just the rest of the decade? Okay. It's hard enough.
Putting as much thought into this as went into the article, I think.
I think somebody in our Discord was right when they said it's probably thinking of how can we maximize the most amount of fan bases that click on this? How do you do that? By having different combinations in every World Series. How did that happen? But in all seriousness, the team that wins the World Series at this time, maybe there's a handful that think they might be at the end holding up the trophy and that's the goal. But do you really know? Do you really know? Imagine if we were here at this time last year, which we couldn't be, but if we were, would we have known what was going to happen, how fun that ride would have been, how it all would have played out? Hell no. This is a time to have some optimism, look ahead, and perhaps thinking about when is the best chance for this Guardians team to go win a World Series?
Well, there's a few components to this. I think number one, we can touch on a little bit of what we talked about this past week with the farm system, because this team's top prospects are all on the cusp. So do they need to be part of the next championship team, or can you win one before Espino and Williams and Bybee get here? I don't know. I think that's a question. I think the other component of this is maybe the other half of the prospect equation, and that's the middle infield and Ahmed Rosario. And he was just hanging out with some kids right behind us. Do we just want to get him on the podcast?
I was signaling, come over here.
He can talk about the Ahmed Rosario wars himself.
I want to know where he weighs in on his own war. How does he think it's going?
You're all sick of hearing about it, but what if the man in question is the one talking about it?
Yeah. I mean, but you're right about just the level of youth that is soon to arrive, because as I'm walking around, I am seeing some of the mainstay talent guys that they're going to be asking a lot of, but I'm also seeing Brian Rocchio. I'm seeing Joe Kenzie Noel tower over everybody. That guy looks unreal in his uniform, standing out on a field, I guess, amongst a bunch of younger kids, but also just standing next to Brian Rocchio. He looks unreal. It's about thinking ahead to this year, but it's also fun to dream about the next several GuardsFest and think about the Brian Rocchios that are out there playing catch that are semi-known to many hardcore fans, but to casual fans, maybe they've heard the name, that's it. That guy could be the star that everyone can't wait to see in 2-3 years. That to me is also the fun of this. You get a chance to connect with and see people interact that aren't on the map yet, but soon will be.
We talked about this, but I think the most impressive part about the state of the franchise is that it's so young still, right? So you've gotten the tough part out of the way, which is figuring out the formula that's going to get you to the postseason. It's going to get you a division championship. That's going to get you experience so that you understand what it requires to win in October. They've done that part, right?
Yeah.
And yet you're still wondering, like, where Arias fits, where Freeman fits, what it's going to take to get Valera up here and thriving. And those are good questions to have when you have the foundation that they established last year. I think it's great. Like, having GuardsFest is critical for this organization to just get these young kids experience, get the fans in tune with who is coming. I think it would have been, I'm sure they were kicking themselves that they didn't have this last year when you knew it was going to be a long year with a lot of young kids auditioning.
Who?
Right.
Who? That was almost every other day.
Stephen Kwan. Wait, I think I heard his name on the... TJ wouldn't stop talking about this guy a couple weeks ago.
So it was right. Look, it was right.
They're just in such a unique spot. And it's amazing. Yeah, you see the list of people at GuardsFest, and a lot of them haven't debuted yet. Mm-mm. A lot of them, I mean, some of them are in like AA.
Right.
It's just...
But think about for them too. You might play for an organization and maybe you've had your picture day when you signed your contract and you can put it in your bio that you're part of an organization. But when you're playing down in the minor leagues, I got to imagine it's tough to still feel connected to the major league organization. That feels like a dream that is way far down the yellow brick road. When you come to an event like this, you have to feel like I am legitimately part of this organization, this team. I could be someone that the fans are gathering and have a huge line for, and just for this organization, it might be within 1 year. You could be that guy. I think it helps set in for younger players too, a situation like this, that they're part of this organization, they're part of this team, and they're not that far off.
Well, how many of them can say, hey, I played with Stephen Kwan last year. I played with Will Brennan. So yeah, there's everyone AA and higher should believe I might be in the major leagues this year. Like, that is entirely possible. And it doesn't have to be too daunting because how many of those kids last season came up and excelled? Exactly. And that's not the norm, but this organization is doing something right to make people believe it can be.
We're recording these segments kind of disjointed because the schedule's going to be all over the place. So we might reference something that we actually it might end up happening later in the show. I don't know how this is going to work.
You think we're going to find out who doesn't like hot dogs?
I'm hoping so by the end of this show. I heard our pal Andre Nutt recently doing a podcast, Barstool podcast, and he said something that I thought was...
That most Cleveland media sucks?
I thought he said something that was very spot on in regard to the Guardians. He said that something like last year can probably never happen again, and it's just not going to happen again. Not to the degree in which it did. If you think about just everything that happened this past year and the way that it happened with all of the younger players contributing the way that they did, that you have players that were barely on the radar starting playoff games for you at first base, that you had Oscar Gonzalez, who wasn't protected in a Rule 5 draft that never happened, delivering walk-off base hits to win you playoff games against the Yankees, and all of the younger players that made their debuts. It's truly incredible. I'm struggling to think of a situation where it's not about just committing to the youth, but having the youth then step up and deliver the amount of times that they did, and then the way that they were counting on all those younger players. That's what's fun to dream about at places like this, where you're going to see a lot of the next wave of talent come through.
So every year, I think, what would it require to be able to write a book about this season? It takes a lot. 2016, publisher I was working with, they had to win the World Series. You could have written a book about that.
Oh, sure.
It certainly would sell more if they win the World Series. I think last season, if they would have advanced past the Yankees, don't you think that would have been book-worthy? Just because you said it, it's like,
I mean, close as it was.
if I would have told you in the spring, and don't forget there was a lockout going on, so you knew even less about the team. Spring training was shortened. Guys were on different workloads to prep for the season. So if I would have told you in March, hey, 17 players are going to debut, Oscar Gonzalez will play a big role,
Yep.
Gabriel Arias will be playing first base by the end of the year, you would have said, good grief, this team's going to go 64 and 98.
Right.
That didn't happen. You're right. It's what transpired last season is not supposed to equate to winning. It's just, it never does. Like what happened last season, the way it unfolded and the way new rookies came up and contributed, that's like what the Royals go into most seasons expecting. That's what the Marlins and the Rockies plan every year. So rarely does that equate to 92 wins and a chance to be in the Final Four of baseball. But you're right. You can't just bank on that happening year after year. And I think what gives this organization hope is that you don't have to. There is depth if people falter, and there's trade capital if you need it. So, you could argue that maybe they should have used some of that this offseason just to take away some of the uncertainty.
And still could.
Still could. Twins keep making moves. Are they better? I don't know. We'll talk about that. But they're just in a good spot. And, we've talked about this before too, but like expectations change. So you're not going to sneak up on anybody. People can still enjoy the journey, but I don't know that you're going to enjoy it as much as you did last regular season, especially in the second half.
Well, it was a unique situation where Tito hated saying that they were playing with house money. Internally, I get why they're saying they're not playing with house money. It hurts whether you win or lose. For a fan, that had to add to the fun that you weren't supposed to be good. I mean, maybe you thought this team was going to be okay, but you didn't think you're going to be winning the division.
But not the way it went.
No, certainly not.
If you thought they were going to be okay, it's because you thought Plesac and Savali would pitch really well, and you'd have a great rotation, and
yes,
I don't know, Franmil Reyes would hit 40 home runs, but who the hell would predict that?
Nobody on this podcast, that's for sure.
Not 4 years in a row, certainly.
You just thought if you keep doing it, eventually it's going to happen, right? Right? Unfortunately not.
Bueller.
Doesn't that also suggest how much can change in a year? Franmil Reyes this time last year, if there would have been a GuardsFest, would have had among the longest lines to go meet that guy. That's the power hitting DH cleanup bat. Now, nowhere to be found. Does he have a home yet? Does he even, other than helping out Ramirez? And
I want the Twins to sign him.
to just utilize the body space that Miguel Sano occupied?
Is Giankensi Noel as big as Franmil Reyes?
He might be once he's the same age.
Okay.
He looks a little bit more.
I feel like Franmil could
youthful.
play left tackle. Noel might be more like an edge rusher.
Defensive end for sure. Yeah, defensive end. Where are we at? What do we got? Let's just share the schedule. What do we got going on?
Josh Bell interview coming soon.
Ooh. Does that mean we should hit the old pause button and resume?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Maybe we'll come back with anything interesting that he said.
Oh, okay. Well, more on that coming up on the Selby's Godcast. Welcome back to you and me. The listeners haven't gone anywhere.
I feel like we should have had some sponsors lined up because we could have easily placed commercials throughout this episode.
Why not? Why did we... What were we thinking?
Waking Lizard, hello.
I mean, come on. I know they listen because they
Podbean, hello.
went through the YouTube and saw all the things that we were saying about them. When we last left you, we had yet to talk to any players or Tito. Now we're back, and we've talked to all the players and Tito, and we have all the information you could ever want. So where do we start?
What stood out to you? Did you have a favorite quote? I feel like there are a lot.
I would say it was probably Will Brennan just ripping on himself for about 5 minutes straight.
I think this team has so much more personality than maybe people realize. A lot of really good talkers, Will Brennan being one of them. How about Stephen Kwan? He was a potato and slept till noon for the first month of the offseason.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Usually you wouldn't want to hear your players say that, but he looks like he's in good shape. And you see a player from at home when you're watching, and you try to gain an understanding of the way that person actually is, and he looks very unassuming, I guess would be the correct word for him. And you wonder, is that actually how they are? No, Stephen Kwan looks about as laid back and as casual as you will find. And he essentially said that when he was asked if he gets recognized much walking around Chicago, and he said no, because he doesn't look like a Major League Baseball player. There's also a lot of, I think there's not only people that know how to offer a pretty funny quote, but it seems like there's a lot of guys that, at least at this point in their career, they're very humble, I guess, is a way I could phrase that.
Which I think is important. You don't want guys who, okay, they had a successful first season, they made the playoffs, they got to play the Yankees in New York, and came down to the wire, and so they can just cruise to the postseason again this year. You want guys to stay hungry. I think it helps. You've been talking about this all day, but when you have another wave of young players on your heels, kind of forces you to stay hungry and motivated, right?
You would think so. Yeah, and I think it's beneficial to those younger players too, that they can look at a blueprint that was very recently used for that player that's ahead of you on the depth chart to reach the major leagues. We had talked about this last week in regard to Arias and how he had to go through some probably struggles internally to be able to stay mentally prepared for that opportunity, and maybe the numbers suffered a little bit. These younger players here, they have a blueprint of other guys that have just come up this past year, that not only can you watch the way they went about it, but I can ask any of the players that just went through what I'm about to go through how they handled it, and maybe I can take something positive away. And it looks like it's an inclusive enough clubhouse that there's not going to be a lot of, I don't want to share this information with you because you're going to steal my job, although I'm sure there's always some degree of that. I think there's just enough friendships and relationships built up that it can only help a lot of younger players that like they have.
Remember the famous picture our buddy Jordan Bastian took about 6 years ago in spring training when Corey Kluber was throwing a side session, and you have Bieber and Savali and was Plesac in that bunch? You had a handful of low-level minor leaguers who were watching a master at his craft and probably thinking, man, I hope one day I can be 1/10 of what this guy is. And you fast forward 5 minutes and they are.
Yeah.
And it's, you don't have that anymore because, and I think a big part of it was like Savali and Plesac probably went into 2019 thinking, I don't know, I hope I get to AAA and maybe I can put myself in big league camp next year.
Right.
The next thing you know, they're pitching for this team that's trying to chase down a wild card spot. And it's pretty similar this year. Will Brennan said, I started last year in AA and I had no thoughts of being on a postseason roster in the major leagues. So I think it just opens your eyes that so much is possible over the course of a full major league season. And you can, I keep saying it, once you get to AA, you don't want to keep thinking, ooh, I'm so close to the majors. That's can only detract from your performance. But if you're being realistic about it, I mean, especially the way this team is operated, you could be in the major leagues.
Yeah, right.
And it's not just be in the major leagues and it's fun and it's all nice and cute and you're there for 5 minutes just watching everybody else, but you might play a big role. And you might be you could be expected to actually thrive at that level, and based on the performances last season, you have to be ready for that.
That's what I keep coming back to, the Arias topic. because he probably did not handle it the best. But yet here he is playing first base in the playoffs. You just don't know. And so being prepared as this organization really tries to, I think, drill within these players' minds, I can hear that. But when I see it play out, that's a different story.
I liked how Will Brennan phrased it, where he said, it's a wait your turn concept, but the better you play, the quicker your turn will come.
Sure.
So yeah, you can get impatient, and other guys might get called up before you, even though you feel you're deserving. But if you keep at it, you force the issue.
Absolutely. Now, there were a couple of things that I actually found really interesting within the conversations we just had with the players.
What about you?
And that's a... What do you're always talking about in a post game? You don't really get much out of it. You never know what you're really going to get in a setting where everybody's around and everyone's trying to hit on different topics and elements for their stories. And if you come away with one or two things that really left you like, oh, that was eye-opening, or something I didn't expect, or something I hadn't thought, it's a really successful conversation. I felt we got that with Josh Bell in regard to his discussion on the shift. He said something I thought was really intriguing and I hadn't considered before.
You guys think the Guardians are going to win?
We covered at length that how much the shift impacts the hitters. We're probably overselling it a little bit, that it's not going to be as impactful as we think.
I mean, you keep saying that we are overselling it, that I'm starting to get to the point that maybe we're going to be underselling it.
Well, he mentioned that it might not even be as much about that there are going to be holes on the right side. In reality, maybe 5-6 balls squeak through there in the course of a season, and it raises your batting average, but you might also lose a couple of the swinging bunts that maybe you got. What I found interesting is that in the approach element, which is what I find fascinating, as a hitter, you can go up there and not worry so much about your process not leading you to the best results because the defense is going to take it away. You just go up there and execute, and you think, what can I drive? I'm going to swing at it. He said one thing that I thought was really interesting, in pitch selection as a hitter, there might be certain pitches that you could potentially or are close to doing damage on, but you have to think, is this a pitch that I would just roll over? Is there a chance I'm just going to roll over on this ball and I got to let this go? But what if that's close to also the same pitch that you drive out of the ballpark, that you're trying to hook over the fence in right field? To me, the results of the shift probably not going to be that big as far as just where the ball goes. I think what it's going to be impossible to figure out till we actually watch it, how does it impact guys' philosophies and the way that they're going after their at-bats?
I think it's going to be a work in progress, too. Don't you think it's going to take guys time to understand the full scope of how it affects them? And it's going to affect everybody differently. But I feel like Josh Bell's going to have a better handle on this in July than he does now, and than he does in April. And it's going to be the other way around, too. I mean, I think opposing teams and defenses are going to change over the course of time, too. I don't know. So many players said today, they've thought about the changes a little bit, but they haven't really spent too much time thinking about it.
No mind.
Yeah, and I kind of think that's just, they'll talk about it when they get to spring training, and I think you just have to learn by experience.
Because there are elements of every single change that you can't fully know until you actually watch it play out.
Right. Bell's a great case, too, because he's been so many different hitters during his career. He's been the 300 hitter who has a really high on-base percentage. Maybe the power's not quite there. I mean, he hit, 17 home runs last season? And then we've seen him hit 37. And we've seen him be sort of like a 250 hitter with a lot of power. So what does he want to be? I mean, this is the first time where he's kind of had a blank canvas.
Well, he even said that he feels like he can approach this like he used to in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
That he no longer has to think about, even consider, do I change my approach? do I go for the single if they're just giving it to me on the left side? I just go up there, and if I think I can do damage on this, I don't have to worry about it rolling into the shift. I just go handle it. And if it turns into an out, so be it. But that's one less thing for the hitter to have to think about at the plate. What did he say? He feels more free? Is that how he phrased it?
Yeah.
More freedom as a hitter, just knowing that you're going to get rewarded, or perhaps you are.
Until they start playing with the right fielder on the cusp of the infield dirt.
Would Miles Straw like that because he gets to cover more ground?
Absolutely.
But that's the way that I thought that he was approaching it.
Are you more interested to watch the lineup this year or the pitching staff?
I could eat those every day if I could. Someone would make me
Initially,
eat swing chairs every morning.
probably the lineup because there's 2 new players there.
And doesn't it seem like
Run it out. Good
there's
hit.
more,
Next batter.
like Kwan in year
Man
2?
down.
That's an interesting storyline to me. Ahmed Rosario contract year. That's an interesting storyline to me. Jose Ramirez
They have not
they have
talked
not
about an
talked about
extension,
an extension.
according to Ahmed himself.
I'm sure.
Nice.
I was gonna say I'm sure they will in spring training. I don't know if. I'm sure they'll at least
All right, run it out.
broach the topic, whether they want to sign him long term or not. See where his head's at. But like,
wouldn't
you can
you
go
wanna
up and
know?
down the lineup though, and I feel like there's some bit of mystery that I'm curious to see what the result is. I mean, even Jose Ramirez, fully healthy, no shift. That's interesting to me. Josh Naylor, we got to talk to, and an off season that was normal for him, where he didn't just have to spend every day strengthening his leg.
Yeah.
I think he wants to prove that he can be in the lineup 160 times, whether a lefty or a righty's on the mound. You go up and down that lineup, and there are people who I want to know more. With the pitching staff, I feel like I know what I'm getting from Bieber and McKenzie, and have some semblance of an idea with even like Quantrill and Savali. And I just, as interested as I am to see the young pitchers who maybe we haven't seen much of or any of yet, the lineup is just, there are so many possible outcomes 1 through 9. And then even the guys behind them, I'm interested to see what it looks like.
Do you think we are in for a different version of Josh Naylor this year?
No headbutts, you mean?
That could factor in. Less rocking of the baby.
I didn't realize that created such a stir to the point that we're still talking about it 3 months later.
Apparently.
I mean, he said it like it's an organic emotion. It's not like he was plotting that, like, if I hit a home run off Garrett Cole, then I need to make sure I have the celebration planned. I have no issue with any celebration on the field that's genuine, that's organic like that. So, who knows? I mean, he said, we'll see. But I don't think you can take the passion and the excitement out of that guy.
No, I was more thinking in line of what does an off-season, as you put it, that's more normal when you asked him about it, how does that change how he goes about his season? And he was even talking about last off-season he was spending 95% of his energy just into making sure that dude could walk, could run, could get around where he needed to. This offseason, he's still working on strengthening the legs and making sure everything is where it needs to be. But he can work on upper body. He can work on strengthening in his arms. He can work on agility. He can work on other parts of his game that were just completely off the table last year.
He said 90 consecutive days
Yes.
of like solely focusing on his leg and strengthening it. Yeah, I mean, it's like if I spend...
Speaking of which, he's right behind us.
If I spend 3 consecutive months playing the piano and then I pick up a tuba, I don't know how good I'm going to be at the tuba, even if I had played the tuba.
That I need
for a
to
long
see.
Time. Is everybody taking pictures of us or of...
It's either us or some guy named Naylor. That is why I find his early season to be especially intriguing. Not that he's completely unknown, but have we seen all of what his capability is yet? We saw him more healthy early in his career, but he was progressing to know he even belonged. Now he has more of that aspect and has learned of what makes him successful. Now he could potentially have the health to go along with
Let me
it.
put you on the spot.
Oh, God.
I'm going to list 4 names. You're going to rank them in terms of who will hit the most home runs to who will hit the least home runs.
Most home runs to least home runs. Okay.
Josh Naylor, Josh Bell, Oscar Gonzalez, Jose Ramirez.
Ooh, I will go Ramirez, Gonzalez, Naylor, Bell.
Bell last? Why are you paying him $16.5 million?
Well, I didn't tell you that Ramirez hits 42, Gonzalez hits 40, Naylor hits 39, and Bell hits 38.
Wow. Team would do pretty well if that
It'd
happened.
be like the Twins a couple of years ago, just with the actual legal balls.
Are they
opposed
good?
to any funny, weird balls.
Juiced. The Bomba Squad. What are they now? Noah Rise.
No Rise.
All pitching.
He didn't really contribute
Why
much.
don't you make the whole plane out of number 3 starters?
the power aspect? I've been chewing on that one for a while. Initially, I didn't get it. I'm going to admit I'm biased because I really like Luis Ariz. I think he is a guy that aspects of his game are hard to completely quantify.
Terry Francona predicted he'd win a batting title like 4 years ago, by the way.
Uh-huh. And you still are waiting for Franmil.
To win a batting title? No.
Don't you think that he's a guy that if I say he's 20% above league average in run creation, it doesn't completely
Correct. It's like
encapsulate?
Isn't
Like-
Quan the same way?
What does it take out of a pitcher to know that this guy's a tough out? That I might have to waste 10 pitches on this guy?
If I think one of the best compliments you can give a hitter is he's annoying to pitchers.
Sure.
And I think Arise exemplifies that as well as anybody.
Now, I also get from the Twins' perspective, they don't have a clear place to play him now that Correa's coming back. I will hear that they perhaps are going to be more, that it's going to be easier for them to replace the offense that they lose with Arise than maybe what they could get an upside ceiling with getting Pablo Lopez from Miami. In munching on it for now about 24 hours, I like it a little bit better for the Twins than I did initially. I'm still not probably over the moon as much as everybody else is about it. I feel like there are some pretty important things that have to happen for it to be a really good trade. On the surface, it's probably making them a little bit better.
They're interesting. I just don't know what to expect. That lineup looks a lot less daunting, I guess, than it did. There were times when, even last year, like you're looking at the 1 through 9 and you're trying to figure out where you could breathe if you're a starting pitcher facing them. And that certainly was the case a few years ago when they were hitting all those home runs, when Mitch Garver's hitting 30 home runs out of the number 9 spot.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, I mean, they're trying to make this a 3-team race. We'll see if they do just that. But we can circle back for a minute to the Naylor, the home run question. Don't you think those 4 could finish in any order?
Yeah. The odds are pretty good that it's going to be Ramirez number 1, though.
You think so?
Don't you think?
I don't know.
I'm
He is the
curious.
smallest by far.
He's also optimal, and we're not even talking about Andres Gimenez. What if that guy takes another step forward power-wise?
Everyone says Quan's going to hit for more power.
Oh, Quan leaves the team, and that's not good. If I can guarantee you, if Quan leads the team in home runs, it's not because it was a positive thing.
Will those 4 rank 1 through 4?
Zanino. Where's Zanino
I was going to
at?
ask about Zanino. I was going to ask about Valera.
Coming off the injury, expecting he's going to hit close to 30 home runs is probably a bit
Straw?
unfair. Inside the Parkers? I don't know how that's
Will
gonna
Straw
work.
hit a home run in 2023?
Yes.
Okay.
I think yes. The answer is yes, he will. Do inside the Parkers qualify?
No.
Ah, damn it. Then no, he's not going to. Gonzalez will continue to fascinate us until he no longer plays, probably. I still have questions about his ability to get to his full power when he's not as disciplined as he could be. It's a lot harder to hit a ball outside the strike zone out of the ballpark than it is a ball that's in the strike zone out of the ballpark.
So you mentioned Jhonkensy Noel earlier and how he looks like peak Jovan Curse. And I know we all get carried away with best shape of their lives, and you get to spring training and you think every player is going to just have a career year. But don't you just look at Oscar Gonzalez and say, like, God, that guy looks like he's just going to hit 35 jacks, and I don't know. There's something about his size and his
looks
build.
so happy doing it.
Yeah.
Just looks just so joyous.
I don't know. I mean, for him, it's just all pitch, like swing decisions, right?
Well, was it Brennan that was like, what are you guys talking about? This dude's been hitting at every level. Was it Brennan that was talking about that?
And he's right. But I think just that profile makes you question things more than many other profiles, because it's a hard one to, I don't want to say fix, but it's a hard one to, he's just going to have to prove that he can adapt, because if you're a pitcher facing him, why would you ever throw anything in the strike zone?
Yes. This also comes back to a conversation you will keep wanting to have with Andre if he ever stops moving around and has other commitments. We understand why a prospect list would look at a guy like Oscar Gonzalez and say, I'm not predicting anything guaranteed with a guy like that. But imagine being Will Brennan. You come up, you play with this guy, you're with him at a bunch of levels. All you see this dude is rake. He's raking at every level. And you would think, what am I missing? What am I missing? And so in that aspect, I understand where he's coming from, that anyone would say he wasn't expected to be anything great. And you just think, why? I watched this guy play. You can't utilize that way of viewing prospects because you would get tricked a lot. But isn't there some degree of, I mean, you're talking about what are we missing? Isn't there something there that has been missed?
Yeah. I mean, can't you say the same thing about Brennan? He's never sniffed a top 100. And Quan never. I mean, I think Fangraphs liked him, but that was it. And nobody liked him until last offseason. Can't you make similar arguments? What is it that everybody's looking for that it seems like certain guys have and certain guys don't, despite some of the tools, despite the performance? At what point do you just trust, do you just go with the performance, or at least give it more weight?
I don't know. I would say once he reaches the big leagues, but then you want him to repeat.
Yeah.
You want him to show that it wasn't a fluke.
Prove you can adjust.
So what is it, 2 years? If Oscar Gonzalez puts up similar stat lines, would you then believe in him?
Mike Chernoff has denied our half-assed attempt
At
to
least
get him
he did
on.
it with a smile on his face. Nope, no, we're good.
I think it's tough. I mean, I like, what more would Stephen Kwan have needed to prove in the minors?
Nothing.
Right. What more does Will Brennan need to prove?
Nothing. There's nothing we can learn about them that would change our minds beyond just watching them at the major league.
Right. So I haven't examined Will Brennan enough in the minors to know about his swing mechanics or this or that. But I have watched the guy hit in the majors for a little bit, and I've seen his stats, and I've talked to people about his ability. I certainly, I mean, I also thought Owen Miller would be a really good major league hitter, and who knows, maybe he will in Milwaukee, in his hometown. But I think Will Brennan can hit major league pitching. I'm not as informed as the people making these lists, but what am I missing that should temper my expectations? That's what I can't figure out, and why I think it would be interesting to talk to some of the scouts and some of the people who are making these rankings, because and they'll be the first to tell you that, like, these things aren't foolproof. But everyone talks about, like, the Guardians always talk about refining every process they have. And I think you could say the same thing about Baseball America, Baseball Prospectus, whatever.
Sure.
So that like they're trying to learn from their process too, so that they're more accurate year after year. I'd be curious to know what they've learned and how they can apply it.
It's tough because no player is the same, and that works positively and negatively. If a guy is having a great minor league career, maybe he is the type that is just going to keep beating expectations.
Right. At what point do we just say, you know what? I just didn't see it, and I never thought that this guy could produce, but he's been in the major leagues for 8 years, and he's a 7-time All-Star. I guess I was wrong. And I still don't quite understand how it works, but it works.
I mean, there are guys like that.
Right.
Hello? Yes?
We would say it for years. How is Eddie Rosario a good hitter? You
Even
shouldn't be able-
Arise. Arise doesn't hit the ball that hard.
Yeah, right.
I mean, you have elite contact and elite strikeout rate, but like so does Quan. So why is that missed there? If you knew Arise would do what he did in the majors, wouldn't he have been a top 100 prospect?
Sure.
Right.
Sure. But also probably still not beyond what those other guys that have superstar potential ceilings. You would still say well, we know what he is, but he might not be a guy that's winning an MVP, and I think that's what this prospect could be.
And that's why I like
How long
when,
did it take you
like,
from the time you started
I
playing
know
baseball until you got to the majors?
Keith Law can be very different and not always correct. I don't think any of these people are correct. But I like that
If
he
you want to make it to the
is.
majors, you got to put in that work.
He will
right?
say it.
All right.
He is.
What about you?
He does not look at any other lists before he releases his.
Well, I don't know. Who wants to answer that? What's the hardest position?
Come on in.
My name is Linda, and I love your podcast. It's
Just jump on.
jeez, I sound like I'm 12 on here.
Oh, it's okay.
How's your baby?
He's awesome. Thank you.
How's Linus?
He's doing better.
Better? Oh, what happened?
He had ACL surgery in December. This is all. Are we recording right now?
Yeah.
I'm
But he's like a week and a half away from going. He's got like an 8-week recovery program.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, he's
Hey.
labs, you know.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens, but no, I just I'm one of your Patreon supporters.
Thank you.
And, oh, definitely. And you guys are my favorite podcast. You guys have a right balance of the positive and the negative. You're not like all, I love your critiques, and you guys are
Well, thank you.
quite entertaining, and I just want to say thank you for having a great podcast.
Well, thank you.
I enjoy your writing too.
I appreciate that.
I'm not trying to like fangirl you or anything here, but no, I really enjoy your books. I bought your most recent, the one of the 95 Indians.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Oh, you wrote a book about the 95
lived it.
Indians. That's
Cleveland
nice.
Rocks. You can find it on Triumph Sports or Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, I just wanted to come by and say
Well, thank you.
guys are awesome.
That was part of the fun of us doing this, is that we can have people come up and just say hi to us, and we can stick that on the show. So,
Oh, cool. Well, I hope I sound intelligent at least. But
any shout outs to anybody? Anybody want to say hi to?
oh gosh, no, I don't
The
have.
Price is Right?
Yes.
Like
love that show.
Spinning the Wheel?
Any shout outs to anybody? Not that I can think of right now. I have to come back and think about it.
Who's the player you're most excited to watch in 2023?
I'm Stephen Kwan.
Okay.
Stephen Kwan was my favorite to watch this year, and hopefully he continues it. And I have every reason to believe he'll continue his success. He just is good at everything. His defense, his hitting. He's a smart player. I'm excited to watch Josh Bell. Happy he got him. We need the bats. And Bieber, of course. Want that extension.
So do the Guardians.
Yeah, I know. But
He's getting married right now.
yeah, Stephen Kwan, I'd say, is my favorite player to watch right now.
Well, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for stopping by.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm Linda, and you guys are awesome and continue the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda.
Great to meet you.
Thank you.
Take care.
See? That was part of the fun, just letting people come up and say hi.
I guess that's what we had our first commercial, basically.
right.
I just didn't realize that the sponsor would be us.
I was just going to cut that. That's going to be the intro, is how much they love
We should also mention we
with your books.
had cookies dropped off to us.
Yes.
Delicious.
And you had one, right?
Yes.
It was delicious. I mean, it was fantastic.
Guys, thank you guys for answering all those great questions.
And I also love that she led us perfectly back into our topic on Stephen Kwan and
What were we just talking about, though?
something about missing things on prospects. And
I felt like I had a great point to make, and I can't remember.
hi.
Hey, hi. I've been nervous about coming up here and talking
Oh,
to you guys.
sit down. Sit down. How are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. What's your name?
Nick.
Nick.
Thomas. Yep.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm great. I've been standing there for like 5 minutes waiting to like make the right time to come up to you guys. 'Cause I didn't want to just interrupt.
There's
in the
never a
middle.
wrong time.
Yeah.
This show is a train wreck, so just do what you.
I mean, you guys keep saying that, but I don't think it is. So
Well, as long as we keep our expectations low, then that's fine.
okay, fair enough.
I just saw someone walk past in a Brian Rocchio jersey, and I was thinking, wow, that looks kind of random. Number 66, I haven't seen that. Good random jersey. And then I realized it was Brian Rocchio.
Yeah, I know. You guys I just missed my opportunity. One of the top prospects. You know.
So you chose us over one of the top prospects.
I guess you could say that.
Well, what are you excited for in 2023?
2023, excited for it just to watch them again. I always watch like game highlights, so I'm just like, I got nothing to do for the next 20 minutes. Let's just watch game 3 over again, or at least the highlights for 10 minutes on YouTube.
But we've never done something like that.
No, not at all.
No, never anything like that.
I think it's because of when, like, the seasons in Cleveland. Because, like, the NFL offseason is so long because the season's so short. Baseball is the shortest offseason. But I think because it happens over winter, it feels like the worst. Like, it's just it's painful. Whereas, like, NFL offseason is longer, but at least it's the summer and you're busy and you got stuff to do. Yeah.
Have you enjoyed GuardsFest?
We just got here. We saw SpongeBob guy. I need to get a picture with him. He's on my list. You guys meeting you guys and SpongeBob guy were on my list of things to accomplish today.
Wow. Were we first or second? Which one was most important?
I'm gonna say first just because I'm on it right now.
Well, now you're on the show. Yeah, that's it. See, there you go. All right.
SpongeBob guy is pretty popular.
It is. Yes.
Joe Noga wrote about him at Cleveland.com.
Yeah. And once Noga writes about you, you know you've made it.
He had jumping jellyfish in his lead. I don't know what that means. Is that a SpongeBob reference?
I don't know. Help us out.
Jellyfish. Yeah, it's like a song. Yeah, it's a little bit of reference. Yeah.
Well, thanks for stopping by and saying hi.
Oh, no problem. I get nervous for like 5 minutes. Like, should I interrupt? Should I just walk up? Yeah.
Just interrupt us. Every time you see us, just interrupt. Well, thank you. See, people love us. Thank you.
So, yeah.
So prospects.
I don't know. I'm glad that we follow a team that is interesting. I think.
What team would have you just pulling your hair out in aggravation?
I mean, imagine covering like. So this is going to be my 13th season. And
we're old. You're old.
I mean, like 2011 and 2012 under Manny Acta didn't go very well. But 2011, they at least they were 30 and 15. And by the time I started covering them every day, once I graduated college that summer, like they were hanging around in the race. There have been so few seasons, maybe none, that like you go into it thinking this is going to be brutal. You know, that death march to 100 losses. 2021 was rough, but like you still didn't really know what the team had at the beginning of the year. There were still some good players, so you wondered. But I'm just thinking about like all the interesting storylines and players to like. If you did a players to watch article for this season, like there would be like 30 names, right? And
yes.
And there are, I mean, there are so many. Like if you covered the Reds right now, you'd be pulling your hair out.
That's what I mean. I'm trying to think of all of the winters where we've really struggled to get through it. And I think it really set in when we were doing our last show over at Patreon, patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast, where you had mentioned that we were 4 weeks away from the start of spring training. And that just about knocked me over when I went back and listened to it.
Yeah.
That we're right here. And usually by this
21st.
time,
3 weeks now.
We're really stretching. What are we going to talk about? And you just can't wait for spring training to start because then it's
How about
something.
Bradley Zimmer?
I have never once felt that this offseason.
Yeah.
Never once. Now, I mean, we have talked about some of the same things throughout some given weeks, but they're all very important topics. There were times where we would go through, I just felt like we were making stuff up to try to make it interesting. This offseason has been a lot of fun.
I love doing this show with you year after year. Like, it gets more and more fun, I think. And I will admit, there were times a year ago where when I knew we were recording the next morning and I sat down at some point the day before and tried to rack my brain to think of topics and nothing was coming up, and I'm like, God, can't we just skip it this week? And like, I'd rather talk about boring nothing topics with you than not talk about anything or not have the podcast. But you're right, it's like we've put off topics this off season for weeks at a time because we just can't get to them because there's so much to discuss.
Well, not only, see, I don't think it's
not forced.
Exactly. It's not so much that there were times where I don't want to sit down and do the show because I don't like talking about the minutia of baseball with you. It's that, are we doing a good enough show? Are we doing the responsible thing for our listeners and even releasing this? Is it even remotely listenable?
Linda would say yes.
And thank you. Those are the types of listeners that kept us doing it, by the way.
All right, I'm going all the way down here.
It has never felt like a chore. It has never felt like a chore at any point this off season. And you keep mentioning that you want to talk about the best chance for this team to go win a world title, when that's going to be. And I mentioned in our opening segment, you start a winter, or you start an off season, you don't always know what your emotions are going to be by the time you get to October. You do this every single, if you have a GuardsFest, you do this every single winter right before spring training, and you have some level of optimism, but you don't know all of the things that you're going to experience. How can you in the next year? That's the fun of this time of year, that it seems like anything is possible, but also their best chance to go win a championship very well may be 2023.
Could be. I think that's crazy, but it's true. And if I would have told you that a year ago, I don't think. I mean, because you can say all the players obviously are gonna say we believed in ourselves, and like Josh Naylor was vehemently saying today, I just trusted that we were good. I'm never gonna say, hey, I really think we can finish in third place this year. No, I mean, every player goes into a season believing in themselves, believing in the team, because that's just the competitive athlete that you are. Why would you think any other way? But I can tell you, I had conversations with people in spring training last year, front office members who were saying, who were targeting 2024 as the year they thought they could really contend for the playoffs, not win the World Series, but do what they did last season. So when you change the timeline, and one of the things we said repeatedly last year on this show was, sometimes your timeline gets dictated for you. You don't always get to dictate it. So when it does change, are you in position to capitalize on it?
If you could have any,
I think they did a decent job of that this offseason. I think Josh Bell is really good. Mike Zunino can at least be an upgrade over Hedges, but it's the internal talent. And can you get more players to take steps forward? Does it happen this year? I just the timeline is so fascinating to me, especially on the pitching side, because I don't. What is the start? What is the World Series rotation? Is it Bieber, McKenzie, Quantrill? Is it Bieber, McKenzie trade acquisition, or is it Bieber, Espino, McKenzie, Williams? Is it not Bieber? Is it McKenzie, Bybee, Williams, Savali? There are so many possible iterations, and so much of it is timeline dependent, and I have no idea how that's going to play out, but I think it's a pretty significant factor on the answer to this question.
Well, that's why I said, in response to which one is the more interesting conversation at the outset of the season, is it the one that's tied to the lineup, or is it the one that's tied to the rotation? At the beginning of the season, it's absolutely the lineup for me. But once we see how those pieces start to blend, I think there's only unless there's injuries or guys are just real bad, there's only so many different ways they're going to stack that together. The pitching could be put together 1,000 different ways. The game 2 starter we might not even be thinking of today. It could be Cody Morris.
I was just going to say that. Could be Cody Morris.
Could be Cody Morris. And he could even start. Here's the other
Logan
thing.
Allen.
We've talked about, well, we don't want to put Cody Morris in the bullpen because that could take away from his ability to be lengthened out. He could start the year in the bullpen and be starting a playoff game by the end of the year. That's how much this could change. And I could make a case for a lot of guys in the minor leagues giving you some very valuable innings. But a lot of that stuff's not going to play out for weeks and perhaps even months.
This happens in every sport. I think more so in football and baseball than basketball, but people just fall off a cliff and other people spring up out of nowhere.
I'm just like hungry all day today, I guess.
It's just so much changes year to year.
What's yours?
Which leads me to some of these names. Like, I thought Cam Hill was going to be the setup man in Cleveland for a long time. What happened to him?
All right, one more.
That guy looked like he was going to be the next Cody Allen.
I thought James Hoyt was going to be a valuable bullpen member, so much so that I wrote a feature story on him.
I think Fangraphs agreed with you. Maybe that was Famgraphs that
I thought Daniel Johnson was going to be a key contributor. Good platoon outfielder.
Yeah.
These are all players whose jerseys are available for sale at GuardsFest today. Want to hear who else?
Do I want to hear who else?
Did you bring your sounders to our remote location?
Oh, I did.
And now it's time for the random Cleveland used to play here guy of the day.
I love that I can see how proud you are of that in person. Will you perform the Triple H Motorhead song?
Yeah, I'm going to do it with the hot dogs. So while you were gone in between recordings here, the visual I can't shake. They were interviewing a few of the younger kids on the field, and the MC here asked the kid what's their favorite condiment on their hot dog. The kid said, "I don't like hot dogs."
Whoa.
So now we know who the favorite player is of that kid that does not
Ahmed
like
Rosario's
hot
son?
dogs.
All right, ready for this list?
Yes.
So I mentioned Cam Hill, James Hoyt, Daniel Johnson. How about Justin Garza? Remember him?
Yeah.
How about Gavin Collins? Does that name ring a bell?
Nope.
I have a Gavin Collins story.
Run it out.
Are you ever going to share it?
Yeah, so he's been in big league camp for the last few years. He's been in the minor league system, and you always need a ton of catchers for spring training because you use a ton of pitchers and you don't want to get your catchers too beat up. I learned Gavin Collins and I get our haircut at the same place.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. I mean, your barber stories have been legendary on this show.
Have they?
Yeah. We at one point talk about, this is how slow an off season probably went. At one point we talked about the struggles of going to a new barber.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've talked
and
about
my barber changed locations, so I drive an exorbitant amount of time now.
The plight of your barber's stories.
To get my hair cut by Kevin, who's the best. And he cut Gavin Collins' hair.
Okay, where is that sponsorship?
Yeah, really. How about Blake Parker?
Sure.
On his jersey? How about Delino DeShields Jr.?
No, I don't. I don't
Good
want
dude.
that.
How about Jordan Luplow? Be a good fit on this team.
Yeah, well,
Too late.
Yeah, it can't happen. So if you're a left-handed person and you see that, are you scared?
Yes. Do you know that you can purchase the jersey of all 3 players Cleveland acquired for Yan Gomes from the Nationals? No. Daniel Johnson. Can you name the other 2?
There's a picture.
Okay, here's a weird question.
Oh, why is his name slipping my mind?
Jeffrey Rodriguez.
Yeah, that was. I couldn't remember if it was Jeffrey or Jeffrey.
And how about infield prospect Andrew Monasterio?
Or goes.
No recollection of
Any
him.
other hobbies that you have?
Michael Martinez.
You need a point.
Ooh.
Too soon.
Speaking
If
of
you
too
do, I think
soon,
it'd be cool.
before you got here early this morning, I witnessed Charles Nagy pitching to a like 4-year-old, and the 4-year-old hit a line drive over Nagy's head up the middle.
What are we doing right now?
Still
Wow.
have not recovered.
Poetic.
All right.
Still have not recovered.
Anybody else have a fun hobby?
Heath Hembry.
What is it?
Yeah.
Gaming. Very cool. What's your favorite game?
Wilson Ramos.
Ooh.
Nice.
Wonder how
I'm
he's
just
doing.
learning about Roblox.
Kyle Nelson.
'Cause I have
Former
a-
roommate, college
I
teammate
know.
of Shane
How
Bieber
real.
at UC Santa Barbara. Shane Bieber getting married today, by the way.
Congrats.
Yep,
Kyle
I
Nelson's
kinda
there.
know. Roblox. It's all the rage.
Scott Moss.
Fortnite. Yep.
Scott Moss. Okay.
JC Mejia.
All right. This is our last
Well,
batter.
no, I think it's Francisco Mejia.
Francisco Mejia.
It's number 73. I think Francisco Mejia wore that in spring.
All right.
Which would you
run it
rather
out, run
have?
it out, And rotate.
Which player?
Yeah. No, not the player. The uniform.
Francisco, I guess.
Isn't JC Mejia? Isn't that more random? I figured you'd want that.
Cesar Hernandez. Ernie Clement. And then a bunch of coaches. DeMarlo Hale. Brad Mills. Mike Sarbaugh. And Ruben Niebla.
I need to know if at least one person has purchased one of those jerseys for the only reason being they want to end up in your story.
Well, our buddy Chris,
Yes.
longtime listener, bought a Tanner Tully, which is going to be amazing in 5 years.
That is a true investment.
All right. You're
Yeah.
gonna get
You can't be
3
thinking about
pitches.
right now.
Did he say it was
And you're gonna
about
run
$50?
the third one. No
Does that sound
matter
right?
what.
Maybe. Hopefully they keep it away from their new puppy.
Yes.
Don't want anything bad to happen.
One of my favorite things about this event every year is they just find whatever we got laying around. We'll try to sell.
Walker is here with us.
Do you think they only do GuardsFest so they can have a garage sale?
Yes.
This is all an elaborate scheme to get stuff out of the garage.
Carl
Genius.
is also here.
I think we need to do a
Make some noise
Selby is
for them.
Godcast fest, and I will have a garage sale in the back.
And not even just like Guardians items. It's just
No, just stuff I have around the house.
what's in your attic.
I need so much help getting all that stuff out of there. What am I gonna do with this little? You have the walkers that babies use with the wheels on the front. They look.
We're doing 3 pitches each.
Sure you
guys,
have
and
one.
then run
Yeah.
the third one,
I've got
okay?
like 3 of those. What am I supposed to do with that now?
And we're staying behind.
And
this
and nobody
line.
wants the used one. They want the brand new one for their baby. And I can't gift that to somebody because they say, "Look at this cheapskate. You just gave me a used
All right,
one."
run it out. Run it out. Next batter up.
Yeah.
Head on down.
I think it's a good idea.
All right, well, we'll see where we're at on that. Well, this has been fun. I don't know if it had any direction at all.
I think those are the best ones sometimes.
And this isn't it for us
All right,
from
run it out. Number
GuardsFest.
3. Nice
We're
shot.
going to go grab whoever we can get, throw them in this chair across from us,
I really like your hat.
and do some Patreon content for
Cool, I like
everybody.
those colors.
So if you'd like to hear more from us, from GuardsFest, how can they do that, Zach?
Heads up.
Patreon.com/SelbyIsGodcast.
Where else can people listen to this show?
Podbean. Stitcher? Is that a thing still?
I think it is.
Nice. Is that your third one?
Apple.
Run it out. Run
That
it
is
out.
Spotify.
Next batter.
SoundCloud?
No, SoundCloud.
So how
No.
are ya? What time
Odyssey?
is it?
Nope.
Are we an Odyssey station?
I think you can find us on iHeartRadio somehow.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna ask.
I didn't say they could do that, but it's on there now. I don't know how that happened.
Napster?
Don't download us from Napster. We will come after
LimeWire.
What do you like to put on?
you. And
your
don't download anything from LimeWire and then wonder what happened to your
All right,
computer.
very nice. How are you?
Cannot tell you anything positive happened
I
after.
always thought the government was going to come knock on my college door and fine me like $7 million.
Nope. Just drummers from Metallica. Those would be the only people that would care about that.
All right.
Well, this was fun. Again, we will see you over at Patreon, hopefully. And if not, we'll see you in the very near future back on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, and Spotify. And follow us on YouTube. Give us a like there, subscribe there, follow us there, whatever the lingo is. And help us get the show to some more people.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Do you have a favorite TV show?